everybody. You look fantastic. Thank you for welcoming me to Iowa, the great state of Iowa. You look amazing. It's been a beautiful day here. Listen, you all know me. I'm Kristi Noem. I'm the governor of South Dakota. We're neighbors. We're family. Is it okay if we just have a family discussion tonight? Yes? If we just have a candid conversation about the fact that you all are going to be sending a message, not just to the people of Iowa, not just to the people of this country, but to the people of the world when you caucus. And you make sure that Donald J. Trump wins Iowa and goes on to become the Republican nominee. The entire world is watching what happens here in Iowa, because if there's anything that we've learned over the last several years in this country, it's that leadership has consequences, that it matters who's in charge. And I'm here because I've worn a lot of hats in my life. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and now I'm a grandma. And I think that there's something that genetically happens to you or changes when you become a grandma. It's almost like your blood becomes steel. And it keeps you awake at night wondering what kind of a country that you're going to give to these grandkids in 20 years. What will it look like? Because I've seen this country change so much in the last several years. People have been asking me all day while I've been in Iowa, and listen, it is fantastic. I love coming here to visit the neighbors because, first of all, the first thing we did is we went to a coffee shop and had cinnamon rolls that were bigger than the plate. And my favorite thing in the world is frosting, so thank you for that very much. Then we got to go to a candy store, and that was right up my alley as well. We got to see tractors and go talk about selling farm machinery and equipment and got to visit with people. And the same conversations I was having all over Iowa today with folks here were the same ones that I'm having in South Dakota. There's three things that kept coming to the top. Number one, it's the grocery store items. It is how much groceries are costing. And listen, pretty often I go to grocery stores and just go help check out or bag groceries, and I just listen to people and talk, and you would be surprised at the amount of people who come through the checkout lines that go put things back on the shelves. That they have to make a choice, are we gonna get the pickles today or the olives, because we don't have enough money in our hands to pay for everything that we wanted on that list today. So today all over Iowa, that's what I heard. In fact, I was at coffee this morning with a group of ladies from the Lutheran Church who were talking about the fact that they are now going to several different grocery stores to get their grocery list because they can get produce cheaper at one and they can get other products cheaper somewhere else, and that is what they had to do. And that right now, the best deal on avocados is at Aldi's. So if you're wondering about where to go get your avocados, they're a little too expensive at Hy-Vee, and I was at Hy-Vee today. There's lots of things that I love about Hy-Vee, but your avocados, I guess, this week are on special over there at Aldi's, and that's what you should be doing. But the second thing everybody's talking about was gas prices. You know, since Joe Biden's been in the White House, gas prices have gone up over 36%. Which is dramatic for a state like Iowa. It's dramatic for a state like my state in South Dakota, where it's a long ways to drive anywhere. If you're gonna drive your kids to school, sometimes it's 20 miles. If you're gonna drive to work and back, they're taking a 40, 50 mile an hour trip. It's just a long ways to drive anywhere. Gas prices dramatically impact your family budget. And then it's the border. It's the corruption and the lawlessness of the open border that we're living with and that we're seeing every single day in this country. So for me, those three issues are what I heard about all day. Is that what you hear about when you live and talk to your families and your neighbors? Is just how much their way of life has been undermined by everything that Joe Biden has done in the White House. Now, you all know me, you know my story. I'm gonna share a little bit with you, but I'm gonna tell you why I'm here today and why I'm campaigning and asking you to go out into caucus for President Trump. And it is because every single day that he was in the White House when I was governor, I got to be on offense. I got to go out and fight for my people and deliver solutions for them and be a problem solver and be aggressive and grow our economy and bring jobs back to our state that created opportunities for our kids and grandkids to move back home. Ever since Joe Biden got into the White House, I've been on defense. I spend 80% of my time just trying to protect my people, just trying to defend their freedoms. Now, I'm a farmer and a rancher. I've run businesses. I've served in our state legislature. Did. I got elected to Congress, served there for several years, and I ran for governor of South Dakota because governors are different. Governors are CEOs. Governors get the chance to get up every single day and to make decisions and to set an agenda. And I knew that our state needed to grow and that we needed opportunities for our kids at home and we needed businesses and people there and we needed to thrive. I would have never dreamed that I would have seen our constitutional freedoms under attack like I've seen since I've been governor. When I got into the governorship, we immediately started dealing with weather and crisis. I think I'm the only governor in the history of South Dakota that has had to have her National Guard activated every single day I've been in office because we've dealt with flooding or tornadoes or bomb cyclones or at the southern border or responding to crises. We've seen it all, but we never could have predicted we'd have to deal with a pandemic. And the way that we dealt with the pandemic was to watch how people used fear to promote their agenda, how they used fear to control people. And I was shocked as I looked across this country and I saw people roll over and give up their freedoms because the government told you you couldn't gather in groups like this. People gave up their freedom of assembly. Because the government told people they couldn't go to church, you saw people give up their freedom of religion. Because the government told people what they could say on social media and what they couldn't say on social media, people were giving up their freedom of speech. The last several years, it has been an all-out war on your constitutional freedoms. And the only person who ever stood up and helped me fight to defend my people in South Dakota's constitutional freedoms was Donald J. Trump. He is the only person. You know, and when I was here today, I was thinking about politicians. Because I still don't, you see politicians everywhere in Iowa right now, don't you? Campaigning, out asking for your vote, asking for you to caucus for them. And what's shocking to me is to see how so many times they think they're better than you are. And you know, I was thinking about how President Trump first announced when he ran to be president of the United States. Do you remember how he made his presidential announcement the first time? In 2016, how did he announce that he was going to run for president? He came down a golden escalator. Do you remember that? Yeah. Who does that? Number one. So I was thinking about in South Dakota recently. We have escalators, I think, in 2 different spots in our state. I know we have an escalator in our airport and in our civic center where our concerts are held. So 99% of the people in South Dakota do not use an escalator on a daily basis, right? It's just not that relatable to the people of South Dakota. Do you have escalators everywhere in Iowa? I don't believe you do. So most politicians, if they're going to announce that they're going to run for public office, what is the first thing that they do? They go out and they buy themselves a pair of overalls, or go stand in a barn, or go stand in a machine shop or a manufacturing plant and try to pretend that they're just like everybody else out there and they're just like you and they want to ask for your vote and they want to run for office. But secretly, they all think they're a little bit better than you. They think they're a little bit smarter than you. They think they're a little bit more qualified and that they'd be the best person in that job and that they should be somebody. They're going to look like they're like you, but in their head and how they act and how they vote, they think they're a little bit better than you. I'll tell you what, President Trump doesn't think he's better than anybody. He knows who he is. He's confident in who he is. He came down a golden escalator because that's who he is. He never pretended to be anybody else other than who he is, and he doesn't think he's better than any of you. I've known the man for years now. Worked with him when he was in the White House on tax cuts, worked with him on policies, trade agreements. I served on the Armed Services Committee, worked on foreign policy with him. He helped me build my economy in South Dakota. We held that fantastic event on July 3rd at Mount Rushmore. Do you remember that? Wasn't that amazing? It was absolutely amazing to celebrate our freedom and our liberties at that great monument in the state of South Dakota, honoring our former leaders who fought, who weren't perfect, but who were honored for their leadership in a time of crisis. And President Trump led us through a time of crisis. And he doesn't think he's better than anybody else. He gets up every single day and he fights for you. And he has had his family attacked, he has had his businesses attacked, and he's never once taken a day off, ever. I'm going to ask you, how many of you are going to caucus? Yes? I've been told, I met with your caucus captains, I've been told that many people in Iowa, can I get a drink of water? A lot of people in Iowa are going to vote and they support President Trump, but they're not necessarily going to be very public about it. Have you found that when you've been talking with people, that they aren't necessarily wanting to go caucus because it's pretty public? Is that true? Are you finding that to be true? Yep. And why is that? Because why? They're afraid of retaliation. Yep. So in all the years that you've known President Trump, has he ever once taken a day off fighting for you? He has put his family on the front line for years. I want you to tell everybody who doesn't want to take 2 hours to go and caucus for President Trump, ask them to just go not take those 2 hours off. Go put 2 hours in for the guy that got up every day and defended your freedoms over the last many years that they've been so under threat by the liberal left. The one thing that I years ago, and I've said to people so many times, is that what's happened in this country is we've had a breakdown of conversation, is that we've quit talking to each other. And I just want to ask people if we would just get over it, get over ourselves. I had a pastor years ago said to me, Kristi, people are going to throw offenses out at you all the time, but you're the one who decides if you're going to pick it up and carry it around with you. And as you're carrying all those burdens around, you're the one that's carrying those offenses. You're the one carrying that with you. You have people in your life that you've quit talking to. You have people here in Iowa that need to caucus and show up for President Trump that they don't want to because they've been offended by somebody. They're worried about retaliation. They're worried about going to church and hearing about it from the person sitting next to them or somebody at business. I want you to go sit down and have conversations with themselves. You have the opportunity every single day when somebody says something to you about politics or someone to decide, I can pick up that offense and carry it around with me and be angry and bitter, or I can walk right by it. You make that choice every day. I'll never forget the day that pastor said to me, he said, Kristi, you can let those offenses lie there and walk right by them, and then you're not the one carrying the burden. Iowa is so critical that I'm going to ask you to start having conversations you haven't had for a long time. Now, if you can imagine, in my family, I was raised by a dad who was a cowboy. He was tough. He woke us up every day by yelling up the stairs, get up. More people die in bed than anywhere else. And I didn't know if that was true, but we got out of bed and we went to work and we all worked together. And it was a powerful thing to grow up in a family like that. We didn't complain about things, we fixed them. And nobody deserves the right to complain about this country and what we're seeing what Joe Biden has done to this country, unless you get up and you fix it. And you start having conversations with people and ask them to go caucus and ask them to go get busy and to work for President Trump and to get it done. He's the one person that I've ever met who doesn't think he's better than anybody else. And if you've ever talked to anybody who's worked for him, he treats everybody the same. He tells them the truth, he's honest, and he's genuine. And how refreshing is that to have someone who could lead our country and actually will fix it and put it back on its foundation like we deserve to have for our kids and our grandkids. Listen, my story in South Dakota is very different than every other governor's in this country. And I'm going to be honest with you. People have asked me all day, how come you're not supporting Ron DeSantis? Listen, I served in Congress with Ron DeSantis. We both got elected governor at the same time. When COVID came and pressure came to close down our states, I was the only governor that never once closed a single business in my state. Never once closed a single church, never once said people couldn't have meetings. I said, I'm going to trust you. going to give you all the information that I have, and I'm going to let you make the best decisions for you and your family and let you use personal responsibility to do that, and we're going to get through this together. Now, we're not going to let people who run for office rewrite history. Ron DeSantis closed his businesses down. He closed his beaches down. When it was hard, challenging political pressure and times when everything mattered and your constitutional freedoms were threatened, Ron DeSantis caved to the pressure. And we just can't afford to put somebody as leader of the free world that caves in to political pressure. Now, I've had people ask me about why I'm not here campaigning for Nikki Haley. I don't know who the real Nikki Haley is. I've heard so many different versions of Nikki Haley and met so many different versions of Nikki Haley. I don't know who she is. When she was governor, she said she was not going to support raising the gas tax and then introduced and passed one of the largest gas tax increases that there ever was. She said China was our friend, that we should be inviting them to invest in our country and build new partnerships with them. Now she's decided that they're our enemy. She said that she was never going to run for president against President Trump, and now she's running for president against President Trump. She defends him, and then she attacks him. She defends him, she attacks him. Whichever way the political winds blow is where she goes. And we cannot trust our country to somebody like that either. So there is one person. If there's one thing that I've always been in this job and in my life is maybe just a little bit too honest and a little bit too much of a family conversation. But there's only one person that I trust to tell me the truth and to actually follow through and to do what he says he's going to do. And that's President Trump. He absolutely will right the ship. The best gift that he gave me the last several years and when he was in the White House was that he let me do my job. Now, I think that I faced all the same decisions that other governors in this country faced. And all we had to do was to look from state to state to see that the decisions that we made had major consequences on your way of life. It affected how your children were educated. It affected your health care. It affected your businesses, your ability to put food on the table. Who's in charge and in leadership in those states made a big difference on what those people went through and how they suffered or how they thrived. Let me tell you, in South Dakota, when every other state shut down, I invited people to come to South Dakota. Come enjoy freedom, spend time with us, and be free again. We hosted big events, sporting events, invited people to come be with us. And it changed. The Sturgis Rally, wasn't that fantastic? It was. Since we did that and embraced freedom in South Dakota, we have broken every single record that we've ever had in the state of South Dakota, as far as we have brought in the largest sales tax revenues that we've ever had because our economy has thrived. We've moved hundreds and hundreds of businesses to South Dakota. Tens of thousands of people have moved to our state. We've had more new businesses begin, more women-owned businesses thrived. Incomes have gone up faster in South Dakota than anywhere else. We broke the national record for the lowest unemployment rate in the history of the country recently with a 1.8% unemployment rate because everybody in South Dakota, they get up and they go to work because they recognize the value of work. If you remember during the pandemic when they offered those elevated unemployment benefits, I was the only governor in the country that said, no, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the flexibility, but our people want to work, and they did. And we are thriving because of it. We've had more money in our reserves. We've made big investments. We've built railroads and roads and bridges and infrastructure that'll make a difference for our state for the next 100 years because of how our economy has boomed and our people have thrived just because we embraced freedom. See, we don't have an income tax like Iowa. We don't have personal property taxes. All we have in South Dakota is a 4.2% sales tax. That is it. And we've got such revenues and dollars coming in that we've been able to return, and the biggest tax cut in South Dakota history to South Dakotans and allow them to keep even more money in their pockets, because what we did in our state was just what conservatives have always said that they believed. We just did it, and we proved that it worked. We proved that it works. For years, as conservatives, we've gone out there and said what we believed and asked people to jump on board and to be with us. All you have to do now is point from state to state and show that our policies work. What President Trump believes and what he will do and what he will implement works, and it will benefit the families that are there. So while we look at the crises that are going on around the world, we would never have the situation going on like we see in the Middle East right now if he had been in the White House. We would never see what was going on with Russia and Ukraine. He would be strong. He'd be strong against North Korea. We wouldn't have a world in chaos if he was still in the White House. And we need to get him back in the White House as soon as we possibly can to restore order. So there's two things I want to ask you to do before I leave. Number one is I want you to start having conversations with people that you haven't talked to before. Now, when I got married, I married into the Noem family. What most people don't know is that the Noem family, when I married into that family, was mainly Democrats. So can you imagine what I did to that poor family? I marry into their family, and then when I run for Congress, I run as a Republican, and it becomes one of the top 5 races in the nation at the time, running with their name as a Republican in the state of South Dakota. And you know what? Most of that family has registered as Republicans now. But I want to tell you why. They didn't change because I blew them up at the Christmas Day dinner table. They didn't, decide to support conservative policies or to support me because I yelled at them or I screamed at them and I told them how right I was. I loved them. And they loved me. And we had conversations and we talked about policies and we had discussions. And eventually they figured out I was right. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. But we've also seen the Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party of 10, 15, 20 years ago, is it? This is a socialist party that is here to take control of your life. That's exactly right. It is an agenda to remake this country into something that is no longer a republic, where you get a voice in your own future and get to use personal responsibility to make decisions for your family and have your constitutional freedoms defended. This Democrat Party is a party that has nothing to do with America. So that is why at this point you need to start sitting down, get over being offended, and go talk to people. When you're pumping gas tonight at the gas station, ask the person at the next gas pump who they're voting for and why, and if they're going to caucus, and ask them to go caucus for President Trump. When you go to the grocery store, when you're shopping with somebody, ask them if they're going to caucus and tell them how important it is. It's time to get over worrying about your own personal, what your neighbors will think of you, what people will do to your business. Show up for a couple hours and fight for the man that's fought for you for years. The only reason that we have this country is because of the good that he did when he was in that White House and how he still continues to tell the truth out there every single day. The second thing that I want to ask you to do is I want you to say yes. Some of the best advice I ever got from my grandma. She was a tough German woman. And I remember when I was pregnant with my first daughter, she said, we had a baby shower. And they were going around the room and they said, give Kristi some new advice on being a new mom. And I got to my grandma Arnold and she said, Kristi, say yes as much as you possibly can. Because so many times as a mom, you have to say no. And I remember thinking, boy, that's strange advice from a grandma who probably said no to me a lot. But I took it to heart and I started to think, I didn't want to be a mom who said no to everything. I wanted to be a mom who said yes. So if my kids wanted to race down the driveway, we raced down the driveway. If my kids wanted to jump in a mud puddle on Easter Sunday, we jumped in a mud puddle. I decided I wanted to be a mom who said yes, but I also decided I was going to say yes to everything else that people asked me to do. Instead of asking myself why I wouldn't do something, why would I do that? I'd say, why would I not do that? And just go try it. Every position I've ever been in my life, every opportunity I've had, is because somebody asked me to do something. It wasn't because I thought, you know what, I'd be a fantastic legislator. I'd be an amazing congressman. It never once occurred to me. Everything that I've ever done is because somebody gave me an opportunity or asked me to do it. And because of the advice my grandma gave me years ago, I had decided long ago to be a person who said yes. You are going to ask people to do things that you're uncomfortable with. Ask you to go to a meeting, ask you to go to a caucus. They're going to ask you to go stand up and tell your story of why it matters who's in the White House. I need you to be people who say yes. We need to be a country who says yes, who boldly stands up and defends our liberties and our freedoms. We don't cower to anybody. We don't cower to the socialists. We don't cower to the Democrat Party, to the liberals. We do not cower to Russia. We do not cower to Hamas or terrorist organizations. We don't negotiate with them. We stand with Israel. We stand with our allies. We fight against North Korea, and we are strong. And we elect people who are strong and will defend those freedoms every single day. And we are going to be bold and support President Trump because he is the only person I know who gets up every day and he fights for you. So stand up with me, and I want you to make a commitment with me. Will you stand with me? Tonight, all of you that are here, I know you're passionate about this country. I know you're passionate about the next generation. I want to thank you for coming, but I want to remind you of the importance of what you are going to be doing here in the next several days. You are literally determining the future of the United States of America. If you look at where we were 5 years ago compared to where we are today, you could have never convinced me a country could change so fast. The issues that we're fighting, the lawlessness, the destruction, the tearing apart of our country, it's happened so quickly. And it's because people did not stand up and weren't bold when they needed to be. I need you to decide tonight to be bold, to be people who say yes, that when you leave those doors tonight, that you go out and you find people and you say, I was gonna show up bold. We're gonna show up and be yes people for President Trump. We're gonna put him back in the White House, and we're gonna defend our freedoms, and we're gonna make sure that President Donald J. Trump is the next president, the 47th president of the United States of America. Can you help me do that? Say yes. 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 Good. God bless you. May God bless the great state of Iowa, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.